Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is finally out in the wild, and I have seen it, and I am pleased to say that I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was very well made, and I'm happy that both audiences and critics alike are reviewing this movie very well. I am going to keep this spoiler free, and just so you know where I'm coming from with my prior knowledge of The Odyssey, which is I had a general, very super basic understanding of the story, like a bullet point list. Understanding of it. So by no means am I an expert, and there's lots in this movie that it told me about the Odyssey that I didn't know. So because of that, I can't compare what this did to the original works. I can only appreciate this in a movie in its own right, but from what I did know about the Odyssey, this movie did do a good job, and I have heard from people that are much more knowledgeable about it that it is a very good adaptation. Now, the other thing that means is, because I'm coming from this from a point of view where I don't know that much about it, is this movie does a good job at telling it. You don't need that prior knowledge. You don't need to know anything about it in order to enjoy this story, which is something I'm very happy about. I was a little worried that maybe my enjoyment of it would be hampered by the fact that I didn't know anything about it, because there are adaptations like that, and I think that personally is a sign of a weak adaptation. Like, in order to enjoy this, you need to know X, Y, Z. Fortunately, that is not the case here. Of course, there is an elephant in the room, and that is the controversy surrounding the modernisation of the dialogue, which was picked up on a lot in the first trailer. And when I saw that, like a lot of people, I just thought, yeah, okay, it is a bit weird that they're saying the word dad. But Tom Holland raised a very good point in an interview. Someone mentioned the modernisation of the dialogue to him and said, why don't you say father? Father would have sounded better. And personally, I think father would have sounded better as well. And he said, well, father would have been just as incorrect as the word dad is, because it's also not ancient Greek. And got to admit, he's got a point. But personally, when I started watching this movie, I very much had that debate in my mind of, like, you know, should they have modernized the dialogue? And I just forgot about it completely once the movie started, and I just slotted in and I just went with the flow. And I think that same thing applies to the cast is, like, very not Greek as well. And I don't know, it didn't take me out of it. I just went with it. It worked. So personally, that side of it didn't really bother me. I don't think it bothered a lot of other people as well. I don't think it sticks out as much as it does in other films, like Napoleon, for example. Very not French people. Like, that one stuck out like a sore thumb much more than this one did. This one clicks into place, and it just worked. And I'm, very pleased about that. My absolute favourite part of the Odyssey was the mythological creatures. I come from a very, strong love of horror background, and that can be monster movie horror, supernatural horror, creature features, that kind of thing. And this movie leans into that very hard, specifically the monster movie one, but an element of the supernatural horror as well. My absolute favourite one, which I think was the first mythological creature they run into, is the Cyclops. It looked amazing. It looked scary. It looked very, very eerie, very surreal, to be honest. It was kind of like it was fascinating. It didn't look very fantasy. Like, when you see like a troll or an ogre or something like that in Lord of the Rings, and it looks cool, but it looks very fantastical. Even if Lord of the Rings can be very grungy at the same time, it's like a fantastical kind of grunge. This movie doesn't have that element. It just looks like something that is just terrifying. It just looks very, very off, but very real as well. It's kind of like what I imagine a Cyclops would actually look like if you met one in real life. And I think that comes from the element of the practical effects that are very famous in Nolan movies. And I think he pushes it so far in this. I don't know how he managed to achieve what he managed to achieve, or just like the cast and crew in general, because obviously it's not just him. He's just the guy that brings it all together, and makes it all happen, because it wouldn't happen without him. But a lot of people do work very hard on it, and it just looks fantastic. And the Cyclops to me is, in an individual design, the pinnacle of that. And that's interesting because it's what the first one that you see. So, like, fairly early on in an admittedly very long movie, but percentage-wise, it's like quite early on. But I still think it's like 45 minutes in, an hour maybe even. I don't know. I wasn't looking at. I was kind of like lost in time. I didn't check my watch once in this one. But when the Cyclops turns up, it's basically Odysseus and his men are trapped in a cave with this thing. And this thing isn't a monster in that it's just running around trying to rip them all apart because it sees humans and then wants to kill them. It's very much, it doesn't perceive humans as a threat, it just sees them as a thing. You know how, like, we would see an insect? It's that kind of thing. Like, maybe one person like would squash the insect, but you wouldn't run around after 500 insects, like, you know, ripping them apart. Not that there's 500 people, but just an example. You wouldn't do it just ripping them all apart. Maybe some would, but I wouldn't. So it doesn't perceive them as a threat, but there are moments where it will, like, just grab one and it eats them and it'll, like, turn away from the camera. And it is just, like, I was glued to the screen in that scene. It's so suspenseful, so edge of your seat, and I am just here for that. Like, I loved it. I just ate that up. It was great. Like, it really was. The other mythological creatures, they're all good. There's one that it was decent enough. It was the last one, I think, or maybe second to last one. So I kind of like jumbled up in my head now. They were on the ship, and it was this great big creature, and it was like just slamming its like legs up to hands. I don't know. It's a very abstract creature, and it was just like grabbing them off the boat. That was just very typical monster movie action moment, which was good, but it doesn't stand out as much as the rest. And my second favourite one, I think, would have to be, they visit this island, and I won't say like exactly what it is that they encounter with this one, but because I feel like that would just spoil it if you don't. If you know the story, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you don't, if I go too far into this, it will spoil it. But the soldiers visit this island, and something happens to them, and the effects they use on this are just beautiful. Like, beautiful and terrifying. It's the most horrific one. It's the one that leans mostly into, like, supernatural, or maybe even just like sorcery. But it is such a, like, you know those scenes where you're just like eyes wide open and you just can't look away, and it's just one of those moments. And it's like mostly a practical effect, I think, but there's a little bit of CGI to like blend, like, you know, where one end and the other begins. And yeah, it, from a pure horror standpoint, that's the one that was the most horrific, and I loved it. But I won't say any more about that one. The other ones are more. Every other one is a very traditional, like, monster type thing. Like, you have the like, what are they called? I don't know what I'm saying. Lestrygonians? Sorry, I've got it up on the screen. I think it's Lestrygonians. The big, they're in the trailer, but the big hulking guys, like, wearing armor. That scene just depicts sheer panic from like Odysseus' crew, and it's just all of these soldiers with these weapons, just like full on, just like chasing them across the beach, and they're running back to the boats to try and escape. Because the entire thing about this movie is they're lost at sea, they're trying to get home, but they go to an island and they're like, okay, we can like gather supplies here and we can carry on. And every time they go to an island, they are met with like the most horrible things, which is obviously, you know, a big part of what the story's about. But man, they just can't catch a break. They really can't. But you know, there are reasons for that, and the movie does explain those. But the big hulking, like, Lestrygonian, I mean, someone correct me now how you say that, but they are good. They don't lean at all into horror beyond, you know, soldiers cutting you down. but they are very imposing. They're very hulking. They have a very big screen presence. And the way they meet them, they see this child. Something seems off, because obviously these are very giant things, so this is a very big child, but they're not giants as in like the Cyclops. But that's essentially what they are. And they meet the child and it's big. And there's this line, I think it might be Matt Damon that delivers it, but the line is along the lines of, like, if this is the child, just imagine what the adults look like. And right there, it's just a great teaser for just what's to come, and it's a really good scene. Another one is obviously the sirens, a very famous part of like Greek mythology. And this one, I can't quite land on whether I loved it or not. Like, I loved what they did, but I wanted more. I'm not gonna go much further into it than that, but I will say, like, Matt Damon has like an excellent scene with the sirens. Like, it's not dialogue heavy at all. It is just pure like screaming agony. And but again, I won't say what happens. I won't spoil it. But it is a really good scene, but it did leave me wanting more. I wanted to see more of the sirens. But what they gave me was good. Maybe it's just a case of they left me wanting more, and that was it. Which, there's far worse things they could do. I could be sat here saying, "Oh, the sirens were terrible," or they were just everything about them was awful, and the scene was just ruined. No, at least I'm saying it's a really good scene. I just wanted more of it. See, other mythological, yeah, there was obviously there are more. There was one, and it leads into kind of talking about like the standout performances in this movie. Before I get into the second one, which is related to a mythological moment, the acting throughout the movie is very good. There wasn't anyone that I really thought was, had a bad performance. At most, maybe it was just like generic line delivery, but that could just be a thing of like, that's all that part needed, that's all that scene needed. But all of the main characters were just excellent. They were really good, very believable in their roles. Two of them stand out very well to me. The first one happens like towards the end, and it's between Tom Holland's character and Anne Hathaway, who plays his mother. Tom Holland plays the son of Odysseus. Telechemus. I don't know. I'm butchering it. I don't know. But yeah, the son of Odysseus anyway. And they have this moment, which is kind of like a heart-to-heart moment, but it's like built right before the climax of the movie, and it is so packed with emotion, and it's a very short scene. Anne Hathaway's like sign-off line in that scene is just pitch perfect. If you do see this, which I would highly recommend, keep an eye out for that scene. Maybe it's just me. Maybe other people didn't read as much into that one, but I thought it was a great scene. The other one, as I say, is mythology related. I won't say how, but what I will say is it's Elliot Page's character, who is in. He's not in the movie a lot, but this scene that he has, which is it's before the like end of the journey, the Odyssey. When I say the journey, I mean there's like probably the bulk of it is showing Matt Damon's journey, or Odysseus's Odyssey journey, whatever. Use the words interchangeably. Like throughout this like Greek mythological landscape, trying to get home. And this is towards the end of that part before they have the last, I don't know, getting on for an hour section of the movie at the end. And he is forced to essentially face the decisions that he has made throughout this journey / Odyssey. I should just say Odyssey because the movie is the Odyssey. But whatever, I'll keep saying journey. Christopher Nolan's The Journey. But yeah, he's forced to face these decisions, and part of that is talking to Elliot Page's character. And my God, like Page's acting is really good. That performance, that scene between those two characters is so good. It is just one of those moments where it just pulls you in. And like I say, several scenes in this movie, where whether it's the action scenes, some of the more horror intense scenes, are like just like very emotional performance heavy scenes. It does have a lot like that, but there is a lot of like scenes, especially with dialogue. I mentioned there's a lot of exposition, a lot of. It's a long script. I can imagine there were many pages in this script because there's a lot of dialogue in this. A lot of it can feel like just characters talking, and you kind of want them to show things more than they do just talking. But I didn't think it was that. It wasn't too much. Like Nolan has definitely done that to more extremes in some other movies that he's made because he is very dialogue heavy. He loves to explain things. But they do a good job at showing it here as well. But there are some scenes where they just overly explain things as well as show them. It kind of reminds me of the like the Big Bang Theory thing, where Sheldon says, they say a picture speaks 1,000 words, but I would say give a picture that speaks 1,000 words and 1,000 words. That can be Christopher Nolan at times, but like he's definitely more guilty of that in some of his other movies than he is here. But there are elements of that as well. So what I'm getting at is, while none of it is badly acted, some of it is just kind of standard line delivery. Some of it's a bit better than that. Some of it's good line delivery, especially when the story really picks up and gets going. And then there are those few key moments where it's just phenomenal line delivery. And Elliot Page gives one of those. There are others. There are others, definitely. I'm not just saying there's two examples of like excellent acting in this. No, there's lots of moments. There's just two that I would say are phenomenal. Obviously, being a Christopher Nolan movie, this is a very cinematography like heavy thing because he loves his scenic views. Like, I always remember, like my introduction to the Christopher Nolan movies was the Dark Knight trilogy, and being a Batman fan, there is a bit of Batman bias there. Like, they are my favorite Nolan movies. Although I do love Interstellar. I will say that I adore that movie. But in the Batman movies, he loves those like camera panning shots of the city, and we do get a lot of like he loves a scenic view, is what I'm trying to say. And ancient Greece, a lot of scenic views, and they look very nice. The cinematography is good. The color grading as well is something that I think it's one of the most powerful tools in this. That, along with the soundtrack, which was just very good. But the color grading and the color palette they use, there's a lot of like darks, darks, grays, blacks. It's very gritty, and very early on, as soon as the movie opens, it sets the tone perfectly because, like I say, this isn't a high fantasy movie. This isn't a whimsical optimistic movie. This, and it's not grimdark either by any means. It's there is hope. A big part of this movie is about hope. Like I say, Odysseus's son, like he has hopes that his father will return. So does Anne Hathaway's character. I always say this because I can't quite remember the characters' names, so maybe I'll just refer to them as the actors. But yeah, so hope is a big theme, but visually it's very dark, it's very somber, it's very gritty, and yeah, the color grading just does a brilliant job of that. Just tonally, it is a movie that pulls me in. Like I say, it's not, I wouldn't call it a fantasy movie, which is strange because it is mythological, but it's just so much more grounded than that. What it is, and I think it's an appropriate comparison here. I think this movie is, if you take Dunkirk, which is a Christopher Nolan movie, it's one that I like, and you take that, and then you take something like Lord of the Rings, the first trilogy, not the Hobbit movies, which I like them, but we're not talking about them. But yeah, you talk Lord of the Rings specifically because there's something grungy about Lord of the Rings. There is something like a little bit dark and gritty, but there's it's high fantasy dark and gritty where this isn't, and then you combine them, so it's kind of like you're looking at this mythological world from the grounded views of a foot soldier, which is funny because in Dunkirk, a good chunk of that movie is set from Tom Hardy's perspective, who is flying above it all as a pilot. But there's a lot of it that's down on the ground, and it's in the mud, it's in the sand. That's what a lot of this is. So I would say, if you look at a lot of Christopher Nolan's previous movies, there's a little bit of each one of them in here, which is kind of what he does well. Like, he will take what he has done well from previous movies and just add them in. Another thing, and it's a criticism I heard from some people I know that have seen it, they don't like the way the movie bounces around with like multiple different like, it's not told in a chronological way, and it doesn't like overtly state like, this is happening in this timeline, this is happening in this time zone, this is time zone timeline, don't know. You know what I mean? Where, this is flashback, this is present day, or present day from... Because the present day in this movie would be from Tom Holland's character's perspective. Then you go flashback, which is Odysseus on his journey, his Odyssey. And it doesn't state that. So I have heard some people say that they wish they made that more obvious. I didn't have an issue with it, though, but I thought I'd mention it because a couple of people I know did mention that they thought it could have maybe signposted it a bit better, or maybe the transition between scenes could have been a bit more obvious. I don't know. I just kind of went with it, but I've spent the last 20 years, one of my favorite TV shows is Doctor Who, so they do a lot of crazy things with timelines, especially the story of River Song and all that, and I follow that seamlessly. So it's the Odyssey, the way they did that was just it's fine. It might have been a weird comparison that with Doctor Who, but my point is, I have heard some people had an issue with the way they don't signpost, the jumping around between different perspectives. But I don't know. I just kind of went with it. It just worked for me. But some people have had that issue, so maybe others will as well. But essentially, kind of all I've really got to say about it. It's just a really good movie. One that I am I just want to talk about with a lot of different people. Anyone who's seen it, I want to know what you think. Where did you land on it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was a great adaptation? Or just tell me what you think. Last thing I'll say before I wrap up is, as much as I really liked it, and I really did, it's not my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. It probably ranks in the upper half. I do have that Batman bias. I just love Batman to bits. He's on the wall behind me there. I didn't know which side he was on then. But yeah, so the Dark Knight trilogy is always going to be my favourite. But then you've got the likes of Interstellar. I think I like this one more than Dunkirk. More than... I don't know about more than Oppenheimer. I really enjoyed that one, but I like it more than Tenet. I like it more than... I think more than The Prestige. I don't know. Maybe it'd be interesting to do a full ranking of his movies at some point. But it's definitely in the upper half. I think that's all I've got to say about it. I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend it. IMAX if you can. Sadly, I didn't get to see it in IMAX. My local cinemas don't do IMAX. Maybe it's something that, while it's during its cinema run in a week or two, I might try and sneak in an IMAX showing. By that I meant sneak it into my life, sneak it into my schedule. Not I'll sneak into the showing. But maybe I'll try that as well. Let me know what you think about it. I loved it, and that'll do it from me. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.